Let's go live. I got a little while this morning to hang out, and there's a couple interesting things that might happen today. So let's see what. All right, Mavis, what's up, my brother? What's happening, man? How you doing today? Let me see. I'm going to kick out another link. Come on, that's not what I wanted to do. Why? Because it just wasn't. So we're going to see what happens today. I'm going to try to keep an eye on. There's a couple of bills coming up in the U.S. House. One about firearms background checks and demographic information and having to report on stuff like that. Basically trying to figure out why the background check system is as screwed as what it is. But, yeah, we pretty well already know it's because the government runs it. Let's see. Look at that. These things never start on time. They're supposed to start at 10. Who knows when they'll drag up and actually get this rolling. And then there's another subcommittee meeting on the coronavirus pandemic and vaccines, which might be kind of interesting to check in on. Dude, that assault weapons ban in Virginia is going to pass. It's already passed the House and the Senate, so we'll see what the governor does. The governor can veto it, and from what I understand, if he vetoes it, they don't have enough to actually push it past his veto. So we'll see how that actually works. And South Carolina today, let me show something. Let me share this. I was trying to see when constitutional carry was going to come back up in the South Carolina Senate, and it looks like it's going to come up today. This was the journal for yesterday. And when you come down through all the introduced bills, where's that? What was it? 35. Here it is, 3594. Let me see. Push this down. Of course, it goes through, and it says placed on the calendar for tomorrow. But remember, this was yesterday's journal, so it should be today that they should be talking about constitutional carry again. As they say, it's placed on the calendar. So we'll see whether they talk about that. They don't come into the session until 11, so I might not get to cover too much of that. Warsaw, what's up, my brother? Yeah, the U.S. Supreme Court's getting hit with a lot of stuff right now. And I've said it in the past, these things should have never made it past state courts, because none of these states' constitutions give them the power to regulate arms. Yeah, man, it's but like I said, you still have a governor up there, brother, that should veto this absolutely retarded assault weapons ban, and I don't think they've got enough people in the legislature to override his veto. So I'm thinking you guys will still be good, but it's going to get scary, especially if he turns around and get the coffee out, especially if he turns around and doesn't veto it for some reason. But he should veto it. What's up, Sam? How you doing today, brother? So we're going to hang out this morning. So there's a couple bills going through the House Judiciary Committee. One having to do with firearms. The other one's having to do with all this domestic spying crap that they're doing. That should kind of slow them down, or at least make it a little harder for them to spy on us. I don't know who this is, and they can leave me a message. They can get over that. So we'll see what happens today. Hopefully, if they do start the debate on constitutional carry, it's more than likely going to be an absolute clown show. But hopefully, Night Strike will cover it once I head on and get out of here to go to work. Which, I mean, technically I'm working now, but don't have to physically be into the shop until a little later. So we'll see how this goes. It'll be a couple little interesting bills today. Some of these bills don't look like they'll be much, and they end up being monsters. So you don't think you'll veto it, man? Yeah, man. You know me, man. I don't have a whole lot of faith in these politicians, so I don't have a whole lot of faith that he'll veto it. I just hope he does. See, man, it really and truly, if these politicians grew a set of freaking nuts and actually started standing up to all this gun legislation, and would get out there and speak on it, their political careers would skyrocket. But let's face it, they're politicians, so they tend to be absolutely spineless. And that's the thing that all of us have to deal with. We're lucky here in Alabama, man. I'm trying to keep an eye on them as much as I can. Matter of fact, their house is going into session here in a minute. But the biggest thing that we've really got going through as far as firearms in Alabama is probably the red flag legislation. I think it's actually Republicans pushing that. I'd have to look and make sure, but that's probably the biggest danger we're looking at. Shit. Let me mute myself. Yeah, there's not a single state that doesn't have something going on as far as mainly Democrats pushing a lot of anti-gun shit right now. There's just, I can't think of a single one. These judiciary committees are taking their sweet time this morning, as they normally do. There ain't nothing new. Make sure all my tabs are live. Oh, hold on.
Especially our
Let's share this tab.
But now like to recognize Ranking Member Ruiz for the purpose of making an opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the witnesses for your participation in today's hearing. Our nation's vaccine safety systems
this is one
play a
about
critical role in
vaccines.
protecting public health. Every day, scientists, physicians, and public health officials work together as
Colorado's
part of this
getting pushed
system
hard
to
right
monitor the safety and efficacy of vaccines to ensure the best possible
Florida,
products reach everyday Americans. Their efforts
Louisiana's
have
trying to
helped
push
protect us
back.
from the
Hopefully
threat
they'll
of
get,
deadly diseases for decades.
their constitutional
And
carry
their
off
efforts
the
during the
ground.
COVID-19 pandemic helped contribute to one of the
if
most
they do
successful
start
vaccine
on-
rollouts in history, which under President Biden's leadership led to the country out of the depths of the pandemic. In total, these
people
efforts
Making me
saved
insane.
3.2 million lives,
Massachusetts definitely fighting for the
prevented
title
18.5
when it comes to
million
stupid gun control.
hospitalizations, and saved the United States an estimated $1.15
Yeah,
trillion
Rhode Island's another one. They're up there trying to
in medical costs.
throw them hands and get that title
As a
too.
physician who went out into underserved communities to administer vaccines during the height of the pandemic, I saw firsthand the difference these vaccines made in helping our communities overcome COVID-19. So at the end of the day, we were able to save so many lives, prevent so much illness, and reduce a mountain of medical
It's crazy,
costs
man. We got a
on
bunch of
our
shit going
system
on.
because
Washington State's
these
trying to revamp
vaccines
some
were
shit.
shown
What's up,
repeatedly
GG3?
to be safe
Night
and
strike.
effective due to extensive clinical data.
A night strike.
And since
South
then,
Carolina
our
should be
nation's
getting back
robust
to
vaccine
constitutional
surveillance
carry
systems
today
and
in the
countless
Senate.
other studies have only reaffirmed the safety of these vaccines by monitoring for and evaluating serious
Well, there's
adverse
a couple bills that are
events,
coming up,
which
and
remain rare. This
I'm
system
gonna
has
turn this guy down so I can talk over him a little bit.
We saw it
There's a couple bills coming up in the House Judiciary over some spying shit, trying to shut some of that down, or at least restrain some of it. One bill about firearms, as far as the background check system and demographic information.
Updated recommendations for vaccine products. So
Dude, oh man, if the Senate pulls that shit, it is purely because they want to screw you guys, and that's all there is to it.
Continue to invest in a strong, capable vaccine safety and surveillance system that is efficient in ensuring the best quality vaccines reach the American people. And it is why we must ensure that when an adverse event does arise, people can receive the protection and compensation.
Notice they won't say, the Democrats won't say anything about the deaths connected to the vaccines.
This front to strengthen the National Vaccine Injury Compensation Program and countermeasures injury compensation program to make them more efficient. And I hope that we discuss those reforms.
Yeah, turn this douchebag up just a little bit.
Does have the potential to generate forward-looking policy solutions that improve people's lives. However, it only does so if we approach this topic with care. Because if we don't, I worry that we are opening a Pandora's box that I fear we won't be able to close again. Right now, we are already witnessing an alarming rise in overall vaccine hesitancy, which has been fueled by mis and disinformation
Remember, kids,
online during the last 4
alarming
years.
if you don't want to take a vaccine.
As this mis and disinformation has festered, immunization rates among Americans have fallen for COVID-19, polio, measles, mumps, and rubella. This should be alarming to us all. We've already seen outbreaks of measles pop up.
Yeah, you may want to go ahead and pick you up some Motrin, some aspirin,
last year, including in Philadelphia
morphine,
and Columbus.
Because if they get to
we've
it today,
already
you
seen
know
an
it's going to be a
additional
damn clown show.
300,000 COVID-19 deaths in the U.S. that could have been prevented if not for a growing distrust in vaccines. I worry that the politicization of medicine, the politicization of science and vaccines will ultimately hurt us all in the end. And that the manufacturing of distrust in public health norms and institutions that we have held true for so long will make us less prepared to combat a future pandemic.
One of these days.
For example, Republicans are already 2.4 times more likely than Democrats or independents to believe that COVID-19 vaccines are unsafe. Childhood vaccination rates are already at a historic low. And we are already in the process of undoing decades of progress in overcoming infectious diseases. And unless we handle each opportunity to discuss this with immense care, we are hurtling toward an even more grim future. So I urge for a constructive civil conversation among us all today that focuses on strengthening our current safety and compensation programs, enhancing confidence in our public health institution, and building a brighter, healthier future for us all.
G2, man, have a good day at work, brother.
Thank you, Dr. Ruiz. Our witnesses today are Dr. Daniel Jernigan. Dr. Jernigan is the director of the National Center for Emerging and Zoonotic Infectious Diseases at the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Dr. Peter Marks. Dr. Marks is the director
Although we know the
of Center
origins of
for
this wasn't
Biologics
zoonotic.
Evaluation and Research at the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. Commander Dr. George Reed Grimes. Commander Grimes is the Director of Injury Compensation Programs at the U.S. Health Resources and Services Administration. Pursuant to Committee on Oversight and Accountability Rule, the witnesses will
Doesn't
please
change.
stand
These
and
people
raise
will
their
lie
right hand.
dead to your face any chance they get.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony that you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. You may be seated. Let the record show that the witnesses all answered in the affirmative. The Select Subcommittee certainly appreciates you all for being here today, and we truly look forward to your testimony. Let me remind the witnesses that we have read your written statement. And
Let
they
me
will appear
refresh
in
this
full
other
in the
hearing and
hearing record.
see,
Please limit your oral statement to 5 minutes.
because
As
this
a reminder,
markup is
please
the
press
hearing
the
I
button
really
on the
well. I
microphone
want to
in
watch
front
both of them, but this markup is
so
the
that
one
it
I
is
really
on
want to
and
look
the
at.
members can hear you. When you begin to speak, the light in front of you will turn green. After 4 minutes, the
The
light will
light in
turn
front of
yellow.
you will turn
When the red
green.
light comes on, your 5 minutes has expired, and we would ask that you please wrap up. I now recognize Dr. Marks to give an opening statement.
Oh,
Chair Wenstrup, Chair Comer, Ranking Member
I hear some
Ruiz,
noise from the
Ranking
other
Member
hearing, but they ain't got
Raskin,
their
and members
cameras
of the
on yet.
Select Subcommittee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify before you to discuss the Food and Drug Administration's COVID-19
So we'll
response
listen to the
and
opening
ongoing
statement
vaccine
here.
safety efforts. Vaccines work. We know from clear and compelling evidence that vaccines save the lives of millions of children and adults every year by producing immune responses that prevent diseases such as measles, influenza, and COVID-19. Though they may not provide perfect protection, vaccines can often
No,
prevent
that's just way
the
out.
most serious
They don't provide
consequences of
perfect
disease,
protection.
including hospitalization and death. The American public can rest assured that the vaccines that are authorized or approved are safe and effective. The vaccine development process and FDA's stringent
I'm not an
regulatory
anti-vaxxer at all,
and
man. My kids
scientific
are vaccinated
evaluation
against a bunch
process
of stuff.
and continued safety surveillance ensure that the health benefits
But all
of
these
available,
vaccines aren't
approved,
safe.
and authorized vaccines far outweigh
Not by any
risks.
means. And the COVID vaccines, sure the
Regarding
hell won't.
COVID-19 vaccines, FDA helped make these critical medical countermeasures available as quickly as possible without compromising our scientific and regulatory standards. During a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic that was a public health emergency,
All
FDA
right.
scientists
Objection, the chair is authorized.
We're gonna
declare
switch
recess
hearings real
time,
fast.
Pursuant to Committee Rule 2, House Rule 11, Clause 2, the chair may postpone further proceedings today on the question of approving any measure or matter or adopting an amendment for which a recorded vote is ordered. Now recognize the gentleman from Wisconsin, Mr. Fitzgerald.
And who knows,
lead
we
us in
might
the, Pledge of Allegiance.
might bounce back to that hearing on vaccines and stuff in a little bit. Yeah, dude, everybody I know who's had the vaccine has gotten COVID. Matter of fact, a couple people that I know that had the vaccine itself liked to kill them.
Pursuant to notice, I call up HR 6824, the NICS Data Reporting Act.
Barton
for purposes
Fink,
of
what's up, my
markup,
brother?
And move that the committee reported favorably to the House. The clerk will
Yep,
report
yep.
the bill.
HR 6824 to require.
Without
the attorney-
objection, the bill will be considered as read and open for amendment at any point. Chair now recognizes the gentleman from, I know Mr. Massey and Ms. Jackson Lee have worked on this legislation. The chair recognizes Mr. Massey, the sponsor of the bill, for an opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. HR 6824, the NICS Data Reporting Act, is simple and straightforward.
Oh,
piece of
damn, they pulled it up
legislation,
quick.
that many colleagues on both sides of the aisle have supported in the past. In fact, this legislation was part of a gun bill that the Democrats passed when they were in the majority. They were so kind as to allow this to be included. It simply requires the Attorney General to submit to Congress a report that includes the demographic data of the individuals determined to be ineligible to purchase a firearm based on a background check performed by the National Instant Criminal
There's
Background
the
Check
man.
System.
What's up, brother Dark?
During the
What
last,
up? What up?
this is an amendment to
Shit, ain't
HR
nothing but the morning, man. How about
7910, a
you?
bill introduced by our
Same
colleague,
shit, you know.
Member Nadler. Then Chairman
Man,
Nadler
this
accepted
is
the language at markup of that bill, which went on to
an
pass the House.
interesting thing.
According to FBI's report on federal denials, as of
So
2024,
what?
there have been over 2
I've been out for the
million
last few
individuals
minutes. So
denied
what's
access
is
to a
this the
firearm
firearm one
after
or the
NICS
stupid
background
COVID
Yeah,
one?
this is the Knicks reporting bill.
However, there have been
Okay.
nowhere near 2 million prosecutions of individuals for lying on their Form 4473, which is the form that potential firearms purchasers complete for their background check. In fact, the number of prosecutions is very low. There were 12 cases
Yeah,
that were
we'll stack another one.
successfully prosecuted
Yeah,
in 1 year out of the millions of denials. So my
12
question is, why is
cases
the
in
Department of
1
Justice
year.
not prosecuting these
Yes.
Bro,
crimes?
that
And the
they
answer
could
is,
not be targeting
look,
a more ridiculous thing.
a lot of these,
Mhm.
most of these are false positives.
Even the fact that
We
they're
wanna
going
know
after,
who,
you know,
why they were
what they call
falsely
assault
denied.
weapons
One concern
for
that I have
400
here, and research has shown
a
this
year is
actually a fact,
absolutely absurd.
is that they're
Yes.
sloppy at the NICS, in the NICS check, in a way that deprives disproportionately American citizens of their right to own a firearm.
Mhm.
For instance, within,
The Knicks systems never
they
stop a
use
damn
phonetically
thing.
similar spellings
never.
of names to do the background check, and they use not exact birthdays, but similar
But they'll
birthdays.
put your ass in
If
jail
you
unless you're
were
Hunter
applying for a
Biden.
job at a bank,
Yep.
and
Dude,
they were
I've
this
seen
sloppy with the
dudes
background check system,
put in
the
research
people doing the
and,
background check system or the bank who was hiring
basically
people would be sued out of
had
existence.
to wait weeks and weeks and
Because here's
weeks
the problem at
because
NICS
they're
that
in
our
research
research has
and they're
shown.
not approved
People
or
within
delayed or
ethnic and
denied.
racial groups
And
Yeah.
share
a right
similar
delayed
names.
is a right denied.
So if you're Hispanic,
And
you're likely
Absolutely.
to have a name that's
this is all
similar to
bullshit.
somebody else's who is Hispanic. If you're Black, you're more likely to share a name with somebody else who is Black. Now, what happens, and the data will show this, and that's why we have to get the data, is that if you're a Black male and you go to purchase a firearm and you're a law-abiding citizen, never committed a crime, have no disqualifying aspect, and they do a background check system on you, you're 3 times as likely to be denied, falsely denied, the purchase of a firearm, because
Yep.
you are likely to have a false positive, a false match with somebody who has a disqualifying condition. For instance, somebody who's been convicted
Yeah.
of a crime that's punishable by a year
I
or
almost
more
got arrested
in
at a
prison.
gun shop before.
And
Damn.
if you are Hispanic, we suspect that the
That
false
Because of-
denial rate is twice
The last transfer I did,
for Hispanic males.
I
it's
got
twice
denied
what it would
and then
be
got
for Caucasian
delayed,
males.
and it stayed that
And
way. And
this
then
is
I
problematic.
waited almost a
I
month
mean,
before I went and picked the gun up,
regardless
just
of
to
how
see
you feel
whether
about
they
the background
unfuck
check
it,
system,
and they
it
never
and
needs
you
to
got
be
approved?
accurate, and it can't be inaccurate.
I
in a
went and
way
picked it
that's,
up, and then the
racially
FFL that I was dealing with
prejudicial.
contacted the
So
ATF, and
that's,
the ATF was
I mean,
like,
this
"Yeah,
is
man, we were
basically
just
a very
having
simple
an
bill.
unusual
It's a
number of
reporting
denied
bill.
delayed at that
I've
time.
asked
It's
the
all
FBI director in our hearings to give us
So
this data.
was
They
it
said they would
the
give it to
was
us.
it the
They
ATF or
haven't.
the state police?
For years, I've been asking for this
It was
data.
ATF.
They haven't been giving
Really?
it to us. It's time to pass a law to get this
Yep.
data. And
Hell, my
I
wife working at the
appreciate
gun
the
shop will tell you
bipartisan
they
support
run
we've
through
had on
times
this
where
in the
they,
past. Yield
you
back.
know, background checks go flawless, and then they run through times where everybody's getting delayed.
For sure. Yeah. I worked
Thank
at
you,
a gun
Mr.
shop
Chairman. Mr.
for
Chairman, this
5 years.
legislation would
My
require
wife worked at a
the
gun
Attorney
shop
General
for
to
several
submit an
years.
annual report to Congress providing
And
demographic
sometimes
data.
they
Those
just
who
get
fail
so
the
backed
National
up. State
Instant
police
Criminal
will be
Background
just like
Check as part of an attempted
backed up
firearm
for
purchase
sometimes
procedure
days,
here.
especially if there's a
The
gun
National
show going
Instant
on or
Criminal
something like
Background
that.
Check System, or NICS, has processed more than 300
See, all of
million
ours are
checks
going straight to the
since the
FBI. We don't
launched
have the state
system in
police involved in it.
1998. NICS checks are critical to enforcing our laws.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
the FBI is the
prohibit
one
certain
running the
individuals
background
from
checks for the
possessing a
ATF.
firearm.
So
The
Yeah,
overwhelming majority of NICS checks
I
determine that
think
the
some
prospective
states
purchaser may legally
like do
purchase
things
a firearm.
differently, but from what I
And these checks
understand,
are
like
typically
at
completed
least in
just a few
Virginia,
minutes.
it's
This means
state
that there is
police,
little to no
and then the
imposition on the rights of
4473
responsible
is
gun owners.
submitted to the
But in some
ATF.
instances,
Yeah,
The
you
gates,
guys
yeah.
got some
Determines that a
extra
person may
layers
not
built in
legally
there.
purchase a firearm
I can't
Yeah.
remember when
because
that
the person
came
is
in, but
matched to a serious criminal conviction,
But a lot of people
a
think
domestic
that
violence
there's a
restraining order,
registration in
a
Virginia.
dishonorable
There's
discharge
no
from the armed forces,
registration.
a
They're
wanted
what they're
persons
doing is
list, or other
they're
disqualifying record.
sympathizing with
Since its inception, NICS has
universal
denied
background
sales
checks, but
in
it's
1.5 million
the
transactions,
only registry that
taking millions of
exists
firearms
is
out of the
the
hands of those
bullshit
who
that
should
the
not have
ATF
them.
is doing illegally.
Congressman Massey first brought
Yeah.
this reporting requirement when we approved it as an amendment to the Protecting Our Kids Act, a gun violence prevention package that we marked up last Congress. At that time, he
Which was
argued that it
also
would shed
bullshit.
light on those who are falsely
Yeah.
denied by NICS. He argued that Black and Hispanic men were especially likely to experience false denials since, due to over-incarceration,
roll call. What's
they're
up, brother man?
disproportionately likely to share a name with a Black or Hispanic man who is
I
incarcerated.
really dislike
The
this.
FBI, which
motherfucker, man.
operates NICS, has multiple
Yeah.
processes available to address the possibility of false denial. When a person receives a denial, he or she may use an online system to quickly file a free appeal, which will also inform the person of the reason for the denial.
You
The
running the
FBI
blue
has
goon,
also
I got the
established a
regular
system
white.
specifically for those who
And I got
experience
the-
Battery dead?
delays or repeated
I got the
denials
white
that they
one,
believe
too.
are in error, which could be due to having a name similar to a person who is prohibited from purchasing firearms. By using the voluntary appeal file process, a person can have his or her case reviewed by the FBI. FBI staff can then confirm that the person may legally purchase firearms and then issue a unique personal identification number, which can be used to ensure accuracy and efficiency
Dude,
in future
a
background
UPIN
checks.
is just
These
another
procedures
step.
are in
It
addition
is
to the
just
use
more
of other
governmental
demographic
overreach.
information like date of birth and the optional provision of a social security number.
It's
which
basically
reduces the
saying,
instances of
okay,
false denials
government,
due to name
I
overlap
intend
or
on
other reasons.
purchasing
In
firearms
2022,
more
more
and
than
more in the
31
future,
million NICS
right?
checks
So
were
here's
conducted.
all
Yeah.
of my information
These
in
checks,
advance.
just 0.07%,
Fuck that.
7 out of 10,000 were denials that were appealed, and just 0.02%, 2 in 10,000, were denials that were appealed and then
Yo,
overturned.
you want to come on the show
The
tonight?
overwhelming majority of NICS denials are the result of the system
Yeah, man,
working
I'd be
as
cool
it
with that.
should,
Yeah,
keeping
10
guns
o'clock.
out of the hands of those who are prohibited from having
Yeah.
them. Given
All
the
right, cool. Let's
importance
do
of
that. We
NICS,
could
we
talk
must
about
continue to make sure that it is a
Virginia and
trustworthy
some other
system
bullshit.
that does not burden lawful gun owners with
Yeah,
false
it's
denials, and critically,
Virginia, man.
does
You
not
guys getting hit
mistakenly
hard with
allow
a
gun
bunch of
sales to
shit
those
right
who are
now.
prohibited from having
Honestly,
firearms and may harm our communities.
I mean, it may
That is
be
why I've
exactly what we
repeatedly
need.
supported efforts to improve the records in NICS
Yeah,
through
I mean, it could
legislation and
force people to
targeted
get off their
grants.
ass.
I hope our colleagues
Can
will
I
continue to work with us on
turn it down
future
just a
efforts
hair for a
to
second?
ensure
I
the
want to say
accuracy of
something,
NICS
and
keep all of us
I
safer.
usually
I
wouldn't
thank
ask for
Congressman
a
Massey for working
usually
with our
wouldn't ask
staff
for
and
a
bipartisan
soapbox, but here's the deal.
by ensuring that the demographic
Think
reporting
about it like
required
this. Okay,
also
so
includes
if
those
I don't know
who
how
are
many people are
denied.
in here,
This will
and
help
I'm
us
not
have
looking
a
at
fuller
chat, so
understanding of not
bear
only
with me.
who
But
is denied,
for everyone
but
that's in
why.
here, I want you to think of something.
Modification will make the bill even
If
stronger
somebody
because we approved it
is
last
about to
Congress,
publicly
amendment to
speak
the Protecting Our Kids
about
This
a
legislation
trans
will further
person, a gay
understanding and
person,
functioning of NICS,
or
so we
you
can
know,
continue to
a black person or something like that, what kind of emotions do they feel when they're about to speak on somebody like that? It's a
Yesterday was
protected
the
class.
anniversary of the shooting that killed 17 people.
Well, these days, man, whenever you get into a protected class, you seriously have to water stuff down.
Yeah, you're scared to say anything. You know, you're like you're walking on eggshells, and the possibility of repercussion is crazy high, right? You're scared to say anything, and because of that, you usually don't, and you usually don't take action or anything like that, right? So I've been racking my brain. I talked to a Marine gun builder about this, and I had asked, okay, if since we, you know, military age males that are armed, that believe in freedom, sorry, that believe in freedom, independence, and liberty, are the ones that have been targeted, and we've become domestic terrorists in their eyes. Like, if you've purchased firearms, ammunition, and Bibles, you are literally a domestic terrorist in their eyes. So I thought of it like this: what do we have to do? What specifically do all of us have to do to make the patriotic American, the armed American, to make that person be the one that they're scared to talk about, to be the one that they're scared to cross, to be the one that they're, aside from shooting people in the face, what would we have to do to be the ones that are protected? What do we have to do to be the ones that they're scared to talk about and scared to remark on? That is my question to pose to all of you guys out there and everyone at home. It's not necessarily something to answer now, but if we can find a way to come together and be the ones that people are scared to, talk about, discuss, come after, criticize, judge, then we could change the culture of all this
Thank the
shit.
chairman and ranking
Yeah,
member.
absolutely. But part of one of the ways that we'd have to do that is you'd have to get an honest media.
For
Yeah, well, that's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, we become the media, right? Alt media is the media now. So, oh man, this freaking sack of bones. I hate this chick.
We must take action.
Yeah.
And I've been working on saying, that I hate things or people or whatever, or cursing and all that. But anyway, I wanted to say that. I wanted to pose that question so everyone out there can genuinely put thought into it and say, what do we have to do to change things, right? Like it's the country has been doing an exceptional job working on destroying patriotic people. And those patriotic people are typically so good, humble, and they're like, we're FAFO, right? We're FAFO. We don't have any plans of going and overtly doing anything. But if you bring it to our front lawn, like that's when we'll react. But at that point, it's too late. You're already facing a wall, right?
Yeah.
We have to change the culture and the environment to be the ones that they don't want to cross, to be the ones that they're scared to remark on, to be the ones that they're scared to criticize and judge. Anyway, sorry, that's my little thing. That's all.
Yeah, that's where like your channel comes in. That was one of the reasons I started my channel, is to fight back against that.
Yeah.
To actually put this kind of shit out there.
And I love honestly, I love seeing people starting channels and coming in. What you do, man, I admire what you do. You got the patience of a school teacher to be doing shit like this, man. I guess school
Dude,
teachers.
that's why I drink
suck
and
now,
cuss so much.
Dude, I feel you.
If an individual may lawfully purchase a firearm or not. The need for accuracy in this system
On the way,
is
Knight.
obvious. An erroneous denial can result in a person having to take extra steps, causing a delay in their ability to purchase a firearm. On the other hand, an erroneous approval can result in a gun being sold to someone who cannot legally have one and might cause harm to themselves or others.
There's no
When
such
erroneous
thing.
sales are discovered, law
Yeah.
enforcement must follow up to retrieve the firearm, creating a potentially dangerous interaction. Guns kill. And guns in the hands of people
No,
who are here
guns
to
will kill.
harm or have other reasons kill. And they kill over and over again.
no.
And that's what we're seeing in the mass shootings.
Technically,
Right.
Maybe
What's up,
up to
brother?
47,
vaccines have killed more people
back
than
into this shit.
rifles.
2024.
What's up, man?
Mass shootings.
What's going on?
Thankfully, both types of errors are
Dude.
rare. Yet we must continue to monitor the effectiveness of
You
NICS.
guys sign in.
Seek
I
continual
would
improvement.
turn my
NICS
camera on,
depends
but I got my
collaboration
shirt off
across
because I'm
local,
just
state, and
getting
federal
up,
partners.
drinking my coffee, and having my
Congress
donut.
must continue to support that collaboration.
Yeah, I give
so that
you
all
kudos
entities
for
are
eating and
entering
drinking with no
accurate
shirt on. I
records
feel
into the
weird about
system.
that. Like I'll get a
Congress
chest
to
hair in my
massively
coffee or some shit
raise
like
this
that.
reporting requirement as an
Dude,
amendment to protecting our
I've
kids
got
act
hair
last
all over the
Congress
place. It don't matter.
spoke about the harms
Oh,
of
dude,
overcriminalization. I was glad to
Okay,
work
so
with him.
backing up,
He expressed his
there
concern that
is
Black
no,
Hispanic
based
men
on
might
our
face an increasing
Constitution,
false denials since they may
and
be
based
most
on the
likely
text,
to
history, and
share a
tradition,
name
there
with a
is no
person
such
who
thing as
is
an illegal firearm.
incarcerated.
It is
Unfortunately,
impossible for a firearm
something
to
we have
be
to stop
illegal.
as well. I
Therefore,
appreciate
it
his
cannot be
concern
illegally
about the
possessed.
burdens
Therefore, there
this
can't be prohibited
overcriminalization
possessors
places on
unless
Black
they're
Hispanic
incarcerated.
people, often requiring
There's
law
Actually,
a,
enforcement
that's
to go
not
above and
true.
beyond to prove they are
An
not a
illegal
threat.
firearm could be an
This is
illegal
an unfortunate reality and one that
full
we don't
auto
always
weapon,
hear acknowledged by all of
as
our
defined by
colleagues.
the NFA in
And so
1986.
appreciation to
yeah,
him
What
but
I'm
for
they
saying is
that
that
don't have
analysis.
that power.
While this bill
yeah,
might help us learn more about
that
NICS,
power doesn't
it will
exist.
unfortunately
Now,
not address the daily
I
harms
agree
of
that it is
law-abiding
law
people
and
will
they'll act
experience
on it and
in their
arrest us,
interactions with our
Mhm.
criminal justice
but
system.
technically,
But
my door is always open to any of my
An
colleagues
unregistered
on this
machine
committee
gun
and in the Congress who are willing to
can't
work
technically be
on
illegal,
addressing
but
these challenging
acknowledging the world
problems.
that we live in,
While
yes,
this
they'll arrest you
legislation may
for it.
not address
But
this
that's okay. You know
particular
why?
issue, it could still improve
Because
our
thanks to our buddy
understanding of nature
Tim,
and ensure
I'm
that
super
it is an
safe.
effective and
There you go.
equitable tool to make our communities safer. For that reason, I support
See,
this
Sheila
legislation,
Jackson Lee
and I
wants
urge
us
my
to be super
colleagues to
safe
support it as
too.
well.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I thank you and I yield back.
I just want to
Gentleman
let you
yields
know,
back. For what purposes, gentleman
Councilwoman,
from
you're a
Kentucky seek
massive cunt,
recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I
and
have a
Yes.
no
bill
one
at the
likes
desk.
you.
Clerk will report the amendment.
An
According to my
amendment to
friend in
HR
Houston,
6824.
everybody in
authorizing
Texas
Objection,
hates
the
her.
amendment will be considered as
But
read. The
apparently
gentleman
she
from
still
Kentucky
gets
is
elected.
recognized to explain his
I
amendment.
wonder why
Amendment's
that
very
could ever
simple. In
be.
fact, it includes some of
Go
the
ahead
I'm
and
not gonna say
includes
anything
language
because it
that
would
the
sound
Democrats asked me to include
bad.
in this bill, and I think they had good ideas, so
let's
we
see what
put
Massey
them
says.
in this amendment. The amendment also just
Coop,
clarifies
can you look up
what
Sheila
it is
Jackson Lee's
that
net
the
worth?
FBI is going to have to give to us in this
Give me a sec.
report.
I'll take a look.
And because we want it to be complete, we want to know things, for instance, like if you were denied a firearm and through the NICS background check system, and then you applied for an appeal, what was the success rate? Is there a racial disparity in the appeals process? And that's something that we're concerned about. I want to thank Ms. Jackson Lee for being
No, you don't.
for being
That's
consistent on this
side chat,
issue.
Dark.
We
That's
shouldn't
why she
have
keeps
racial
getting reelected.
disparities in
I won't
drug
say it on air, but
prosecution.
that's why.
As AI
What's that?
technology develops, we want
Check
to
the
make sure
private
there's
chat,
no
the side
racial
chat there.
disparities in
On
that.
this on
We've
StreamYard.
talked about facial recognition in the oversight committee and how we need to make sure there's no
Let's go to open
For sure.
racial
For
disparities
sure.
there. And Ms. Jackson Lee has been consistent in that, in her pursuit of equality under the law. And I appreciate
Oh, I
her
think
consistency
Warsaw wanted to
in
join.
supporting this as well. It's a genuine concern.
Yeah, I
There's
sent
no
him a link
gotchas
earlier. Let me
here
see.
in
Let me
the
pull back
bill
over.
and no gotchas
Okay.
in the amendment.
My bad,
And
y'all. I
I
wasn't
think
looking at
you'll
chat earlier.
shed some light and cause
Yeah, I
us
sent
to
him a
be
link.
able to improve the
I
system
don't see him down in
in a
the
way that's
chat
more
yet, but let me
fair
look at
than
this.
currently is. And I just, real quickly,
Hey, you
last
see that
Congress,
MP5K
Actually,
up
there were
there?
some conservatives who
In
opposed
little
Open
guy.
this
Secrets,
amendment
Sheila Jackson
because
Lee
it calls
says
for
she's got a
reporting
net
of
worth of
sex and gender,
181,000.
both. And
That
they
was in
thought that
2018.
my bill
That's
suggested that sex and
interesting
gender
that it
are
is
two different things.
exactly what
The
her
reality is
annual
the
Salary is-
ATF
congressional
on Form
salary is. Would you look
4473,
at that?
Yeah.
they once listed, they once
What a
used
joke.
to ask
Dark, did you
for
see my last
sex,
live stream?
and now they
I
ask
did
for
not, no.
gender.
I did a
vice
whole
versa.
piece
So
on the
we
history of
have
the
to ask
SETME
for
and the
both sex
G3
and gender
rifle.
on this. This isn't
Nice.
some
And by the way,
ideology
I've got
that's
the
crept
full
its way
size. I've got
into
the
my
G3. You've got the
my law
you've got the
here
the,
that
the
I'm trying to pass.
miniaturized
It's
compact.
basically just the reality of the 4473 and how they've asked the question
Do-
Fred,
differently
good morning,
Do
brother.
I?
over time.
Yeah. The
One other
MP5 is the
thing I wanna
compact version of the
clarify,
G3 and
the
9mm.
demographic data
Oh,
will
yeah,
include
yeah.
race,
The G3 is the
ethnicity, national origin,
full
sex,
size and
gender,
308.
age,
Yeah, this is
disability,
the subcompact.
and
Yes.
English
Yes.
language proficiency.
This is the
of
Glock
applicant,
26 version
but
of
these
the
won't be
HK91.
identifiable.
By the way, did you
It
know
will not
there's like
identify
20 different
individuals.
versions of the
reports
MP5?
that we're asking
Oh yeah,
will protect the
there's
privacy of
a
everybody.
crazy
And that's even before
has
clones and
undergone background
manufacturers.
checks. We're not trying to
MP5N,
identify these
MP5K,
people
MP5M,
individually. We
MP5SD,
want to know
MP5.
statistically. So
Fuck
those
it. There's
things
the
will
full
not be
size
revealed.
94s with
The
full stocks.
individuals won't be
The,
revealed through that data.
The ones in
so
10
the-
millimeter, the ones in 40?
10, 40, yep.
Again,
There
I
actually
think the
was
amendment
What's up,
that I've
brother?
offered here
there actually was a
needs to be adopted.
a 40
One of the things also that I added
41
in the amendment,
no, not 41
we want to
AE.
know
What's
the
that other
demographic
stupid
data of
caliber
the
that no one
people who
uses?
were
58E.
approved.
No, it was
Because
a
if we're
smaller
going to
one.
establish a rate of disapproval,
Was
we
was it the
have- we
Uzis
have
that
to
were
have a
41
denominator.
AE back in the day?
And
I
I've-
don't remember.
in the
I
first
think they
bill
made
that I offered that the Democrats eventually
concept
accepted
MP5
last
that was
Congress,
41 Action
we just
Express.
sort of trusted
It never
that the
came to
FBI would
fruition,
give us
but
that
the
number,
10
and I
mil
wanna
one,
be
bro,
clear
I would
in
rock
the
that
amendment
all
that they
day.
need to tell us not just the demographics of the people
I just
who
wish
were
they did a
denied,
K version.
but of those who were approved, so that we can
Good luck getting
establish a
parts for that
baseline
shit,
and
though.
know if there's
Yeah. Well,
in order to know if there's a
what you could
disparity
do
in terms of percentage.
is you could modify
And
the bolt
with that, I yield back.
of a K version,
the
swap
Yeah.
the bolt out, the bolt head out
ranking member
for
that
the
we're gonna-
10 millimeter bolt, and
Chairman,
it probably
yeah.
would run just fine.
find myself
If there was was a
the second day
K
in a row,
version
find
in
myself in
40,
total
you
agreement
could
with Mr.
definitely pull
Massey.
that off.
It's a good amendment. I support the amendment. And I think from not long knowledge of Mr. Massey.
So Desert
I'm sure
Eagle did
everyone,
make a
there
41
was no
AE,
woke
but
ideology
Action
in this
Arms
amendment.
made a
So I urge
41
the amendment. I
AE
yield back.
Gentleman yields back.
Uzi
The gentleman
prior
from,
to it.
Maryland is recognized. Then I'll come to Sheila.
Thank you,
Aliens
Mr.
out
Chairman.
there.
I appreciate that.
Damien
To
Christ,
Mr.
what's up, bro?
Massey, I appreciate this language. I'm inclined to support it. I did have a question.
Gabe.
But before I get to that, I did want to suggest a couple of things. I think the points you made about potential for confusing names. When I was a prosecutor, one of the things we ran into was confusion of surnames with respect to in the Latino community.
No,
Say
really?
it ain't so.
Hey, is Hank Johnson here? Is Mr. Capsize here himself?
Yeah, are you telling me that Juan Lopez may be confused with another Juan Lopez?
Well, the other one I ran into was identity theft.
John Smith?
No, he'll get confused with Julio Lopez.
I don't
Completely
know if
different.
Here,
of course,
but that would certainly be something.
Thought it was
I'd be
Jesus
interested in finding
Lopez.
out, 'cause we
No,
don't
that's Jesus.
that kind of
who
inaccurate
would ever
information. I did also want to
identity theft? Who
suggest,
would ever steal someone's identity
along the lines
and then
of what the
illegally
ranking member
purchase a
said,
firearm?
Jackson Lee,
I mean, I don't know.
about
Who
some
I mean,
would?
do you think that maybe a criminal would do that?
We're not going to do it today. And I
Maybe
get
someone
that, but
here
the
illegally.
background check.
So do you
piece,
think
and
that
I might have
maybe
I might be
it
behind
wouldn't
on
make a
the
fucking
Lakewood
difference what
shooting.
legislation you make
One
on
of the
this?
things I
Like,
read
come
in
on,
the
now you
dude.
see
paper,
poor
and that was
Sal.
overtaken by Kansas City.
I don't know,
Saturday.
man. I don't know.
The woman who
40
was the
did
shooter in
save
that
my
case
life.
had
Yes.
been,
Come on, G23. Stop bringing
flagged, or
it up.
the gun had been seized
Yeah,
or
you know,
something.
40's nice.
What's up, brother
Just
Warsaw?
a few years
What's up,
earlier.
Warsaw?
So one of the questions I came away
Another
with
shit show
was,
again.
well, how did she
Yeah.
miss another shot?
What, you're
Might have been
expecting it to be
answered, might have
anything
missed it.
other than a shit show? Come
Types
on.
of things
Yeah.
I would love to
Other
see
than
if we could
Nadler yesterday,
do
we're
in
gonna
the
have to see
committee
that
or
again.
even in the
Well,
subcommittee. I'm not on the subcommittee.
If you
but
could
Hey, look,
pick-
man, I had to go
sit in.
scrub myself in the
Those
shower
technical
last night because
issues.
I agreed with damn
Others,
Jerry
ghost guns
Nadler
and the
on part
like,
of
I'd
that
love to
bill.
see us try and
Ooh.
take some of that on
Ooh.
as
I just
well.
laid there
With
to
respect to
cry,
this language, though,
scrub.
Did you pull
English
like
language
the
proficiency, I was
post rape
very
scene where you
curious
like
as to,
Yeah.
sat in the shower and it just like
what the
cuddling
goal
up under
is
the warm
there in
water
seeking
Yes.
that
Full on.
information.
with a little
Full
trail of
on.
blood leaking
Also,
down?
how,
from-
Yeah.
Full
Hey,
on.
that is
That's how
very
that goes.
for
Hey, Coop, you ever
self-selected
notice
by the
that
person
Nadler
filling out the
slouches
form, or
his
does somebody
back?
make an
I
evaluation?
Yeah,
thought
because
the
he-
guy couldn't stand up
How
his
does
great
that
while he's
work?
on a
Because
fence.
he's the
yield to the
penguin.
gentleman.
He's old.
He
I'm not
does
sure
have
if
an
it's-
umbrella.
If it's on the form
Dude, I've seen him.
4473 or
I've
not,
seen him
somebody's
literally
got-
just
somebody
about
on staff
pass
could look
out
at
in a
that
hearing.
to see if they're
Bro,
Me
I've
too.
seen him fall asleep.
One of the concerns
I've
that
seen
I
him
have
fart
there
live
is,
on air.
is it harder for you to
Oh, I haven't
navigate
seen
the
it.
legal system
You sure that was farting and not
based on
sharting?
English language proficiency?
Well,
Let's
it may
say
have been
He did
farting.
himself in a press
then you're
conference
trying
one
to
time.
do an
Yeah.
appeal, and if
I
you
want to
know,
hear Massey.
how well do you fare in that appeal? By the way, the first appeal is easy, and it's almost de facto and granted to you. But after that appeal, you go into the legal system, and I know I've used this argument before in judiciary, and it doesn't get much traction because 90% of the people here are lawyers. But after that first appeal, you got to hire a lawyer and pay money.
That's it below the belt,
And
Fred.
which I know isn't a problem for the lawyers on this dais, but what I'm concerned about is the appeals process, and is it going to be harder for somebody without English language proficiency?
Yes.
Yes.
I thank the
Always.
gentleman, and I yield back.
What I
Gentleman yields
would
back. The chair now
wonder is
recognizes
if it would be
gentleman from
difficult for someone in a wheelchair to walk.
I just wanted to thank my friend from Kentucky,
Kind of that
gentle lady
whole
from
wheelchair
Texas,
thing,
and
you
those
know.
working on this legislation.
Can we
I
also just
agree
say
with the
how funny it
legislation.
is that like
I also want to
he's like, I
point
would
out
like
to the ranking
to
member
take a
that,
moment to
I
thank
agree. It's 2 days in a
Miss
row.
Sheila
I told you
Jackson
last night
Lee.
walking on
That
the floor, I was
means
trying not to make it
fuck
too
you,
often.
bitch.
Here we are again.
Yeah.
You know,
That is a very polite way to say it.
I hope we can
That's
continue,
either
by the way,
fuck
as a
you
side note,
or I want to blow
move
smoke up
forward
your
with the
ass.
Judiciary
Giggity.
product
yeah.
on FISA. I know that's not
But
what
this
we're here to
guy
talk about.
right here, he's
It's
pro
something
Second
that we
Amendment
should do.
all
Yeah.
the way.
Roy?
Somebody did
For
great
sure.
work on
Oh,
that
yeah.
product.
Yeah, I've
It
seen
should
this
be
guy.
the product that's being brought to the
I've
floor
seen
of the
him
House.
beat Democrats
And
verbally
we should do
for
it,
their anti-gun
immediately.
shit.
And
Yeah.
Oh
I
yeah,
hope
Chip
that, I hope
gets
that
down
that's what the
sometimes, man.
will of the
Yeah.
body will
Mr. Roy
be
reminds me
able
of
to carry
Clay
it forward
Higgins.
with. I did want to say one thing with respect to something my friend from Kentucky alluded to, concerns, I think he said, for some of our Republican colleagues on the question of sex and gender and ideology, woke ideology, whatever. I think he's made that clear. So hopefully that will clear up any confusion if people are voting on this in committee or on the floor,
Hey,
should
Coop.
we get there. But I also want to note, because I think it's important,
Nice.
that just by virtue of
Ayo,
us
had to
wanting to
cover
work
that
on this
code.
issue to collect
Just saying.
data, I know my friend from Kentucky and his view of the Second Amendment and the view of ensuring that there's not burdensome systems that interfere with the right to defend ourselves and so forth. We have differences of opinion across the committee on how to
should be on the books.
have NICs operate and so forth. But that at the end of the day, the goal, I know, of the gentleman from Kentucky, like mine, is to ensure that we're protecting Second Amendment rights and doing so equally.
Yep.
And that nobody should be denied their ability to defend themselves under their constitutional right to defend themselves based on race or based on any other factor. And that I assume, and I'll yield to the gentleman from Kentucky, I assume that he is motivated by that to ensure that we're able to have all Americans, regardless of their background, their color, their ethnicity, their name, get equal access to be able to afford
My
themselves.
FFL wouldn't let me
protection under
put
the
down
Second Amendment
non-binary on
Constitution.
my
I yield to the
last
gentleman from
transfer.
Kentucky.
Absolutely. I think
Did
everybody
you guys
here
see
recognizes the First
it was
Second
actually
Amendment, there are
from a
legitimate
little while
reasons
ago,
for
but the
possessing a
whole
firearm,
do
and
you
we
reside
wouldn't want to
within city
deprive
limits?
anybody
Yeah, don't answer
uh,
that.
based on
Dude,
their
if
race,
you
or
put
gender,
yes
or
and you
national
don't, or if you
origin,
put
the
no
ability
and you
to
do,
exercise that amendment.
You get in
they
trouble.
will
We may
literally
want to exclude
deny
them based
your
on
shit.
felony convictions.
You,
in
It's
a
a,
Lying
sense.
on a
That is
federal
it's a
what this
fishing
does. If
question.
you're
Is
violent
pretty
I
much.
would
criminal, I mean, that's
say,
what the
for me
background check
personally,
system is
I
about. You
select
just don't want to mix
unknown
those two
every
categories
single
of
time,
people
and I
carelessly in
always
a
get
way
approved.
that
I'm just saying. But I
disproportionately
also
affects
don't
a certain
usually
segment of
do
society.
I
And that's
4473s
what
anymore.
my
I just build
concern
I,
guns.
is.
I
That's going on.
answer it
Research
truthfully, but
indicates that.
again,
I'm trying to
they
get
don't
that
have to
data.
send in my
And if we have that
4473s
data,
because I have
then
a
we shouldn't
concealed
be
weapons
afraid to
permit.
see it.
Yeah,
It may be disappointing when we get it, and then
genuinely
we need to
don't
figure out how
know
to fix
if I
it.
reside within
Because
city
if you're
limits or
the
not.
Because
or
remember,
if
in
you're a
some states,
private
if you have a
employer
CWP, you
and
still
you
have to
had a
fill out the
citizen work for your
4473,
bank and you
but
do
they're
a
not
background
required
check
to send
on
them in
everybody,
because you're constantly
and you
having
had
a
a
background check
system
already.
In
that
Virginia,
was
you still
racially
have to do a
prejudicial
4473 with a
background check
CHP.
system, you'd probably
Yeah, in
get sued
Alabama
out of
you do. I
existence
can't use my concealed
once it
carry
got discovered.
as a
But that's not the
background
case
check.
with the government, and so it's up to us here in
Yeah,
Congress.
That's
well,
because a
If
bunch
there's
of
a
bunch of sheriffs
disparity
got
in a
busted
government
basically
system, it's
selling
up to us to fix it. And to fix it, we got to
carry
know
permits.
how pervasive it is.
well, South
I
Carolina's
think going
different.
to Kentucky, and I'll move along. But I just finally say when when
We
I
know
was
that
a
already,
prosecutor
don't
and
we,
worked
Coop?
for a long period of time.
Yeah,
Otherwise, I
well, if
was
they get the
doing
constitutional carry
prosecution
again
in a
today,
partially
you're
safe
going to see
neighborhood.
just how different they
And
are
so
again.
we were constantly
Yeah,
working
well,
to ensure that we were,
I have it on
had
good
the data
authority that
understood
that the
what was
House
going on. But
sent it back
prosecuting
with a
putting,
note saying, "Get it right, you
people in jail
retards."
for misuse of firearms was what I was doing.
Yeah.
And we want to make sure
I
we
have it
the
on
right
good
data. We
authority.
want to make sure that we're able to prevent it. If you've got felons, and then, but I would just note here on the back end of that, we need to continue to make sure the Department of Justice is prosecuting on the backside of that when you have felons that are using firearms. And I think that's something we need to continue to press on from an oversight perspective with the Department of Justice to ensure they're doing that. I'd yield my remaining time to the gentleman from Kentucky.
Yeah, I just want to answer Mr. Abbey's question more thoroughly. I've got the 4473. It doesn't ask for English language proficiency, but the text of the amendment says if available. So if it's available, we want the FBI to report that to us, but it's not a new mandate to report that.
Yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The gentlelady from Texas is recognized.
Yeah, Mr. Jim Jordan. Jim Jordan's very pro Second Amendment.
Tranquil discourse is overwhelming.
It's one of the reasons that we've talked about trying to put some pressure on him to get these
emotion,
federal
my good
judges
friend,
up there in
Brother
hearings.
Chip,
I tag his
looks
ass
like,
on X
we'll
every
find some
chance
time
I
to
get.
travel through
Well,
the
he
Cuba
can only do so much.
get back home. And I thank him.
Yeah,
I'd like to do
The
five
House
as
could
well,
actually
so maybe we'll
start
have some
impeachment
opportunity to
on
do
these
that.
judges.
Yeah.
Give me
we
one
in the
second.
Federal
judiciary work
judges.
very hard on it.
I mean, well,
wanna
we just
put the
impeached what's his name, Mayorkas. So
both
I
the
mean, we're
chairman
putting
and the
pressure
ranking
on him
member
now.
of what this is.
Yeah, but
Congressman
impeachment
Massey and
doesn't
I
mean
appreciate
anything.
it. It is to avoid discrimination.
No, not
and I
unless
think
the
that's
Senate
what we
picks it up
should
too.
emphasize.
And that's the
And I
problem.
hope with the oversight of the Judiciary Committee, we'll be very attentive to make sure that it doesn't do the reverse, that it doesn't discriminate against Black and brown. And what Mr. Massey and I came to a conclusion, and I'm grateful for the collaboration, is that it's unfortunate, but by history or by culture or by circumstances, maybe I should say, Black and brown men have
God.
records, or Black and brown people have records.
Someone shut her up.
Got to the over incarceration too late. We're trying to stop it now. And so with that in mind, they would have a tendency to have similar names and be blocked from their constitutional right. So we're trying to enhance constitutional rights by trying to find out
what
No, you're not.
is there any
I call
discrimination
Crocus
on
shit right
names
there.
And you'd be
any
right.
other
dude?
things
That
involving,
lie was heavier than 10
individuals who
boxes if
happen
you
to
were
be,
moving.
Yes.
of that
Last time we
background.
checked, the
So
Democratic
your good
Party,
faith is
especially under
appreciated.
blacks, were
I hope that
oppressing
we can
black rights
continue
for having a
to
firearm.
do this kind of work. Your amendment is one that we were willing to accept. Thank you for working with our
So,
staff to ensure that due process is included. That's one of the issues that I wanted to emphasize. And I wanted to also emphasize that there
Dark's
is
frozen.
sufficient
No, I'm
data
here. I'm
to indicate that there's
just responding to somebody
discrimination.
real quick.
But I will also say that maybe we can keep working and find some common ground that doesn't offend gun owners, which I never want to offend since my state is.
Bullshit. Everyone in
you
Texas says you.
Yeah.
You've offended
to
nearly
find
every
a
gun
way,
owner in this country.
it would be good, Mr. Matthews, two of us
Just sheer ignorance of
look
this
at the
lady is
storage bill, but
baffling.
to look at ways to stop the proliferation of guns in the hands of bad
Well,
people,
ignorance is bliss.
what we all have said.
Or is it 9/10 the
Generate,
law? I'm not sure.
The
Dude, I said it the other day, man. This
we don't
this
have the final
fraction is
determination.
flipped, and we are
Yesterday,
ruled by the
something went
lowest
wrong.
common denominator.
Somebody had a gun that should not have had a gun. So
It's
I want to just end my remarks.
How
by
many
saying,
times has the FBI failed, and yet they still
did a
trying to
fine
fix that
job
issue?
a year or two ago on the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act.
Oh my
And
God!
it
Here
Oh
we go
my
again.
God, here it comes.
It might be somebody swallowing hard on the other side right now, but I think we have ways of
What?
looking at that legislation, looking at
That
other
chick behind you
legislation,
looks like
and
she
doing
could
good
swallow
things
hard.
for
You
the
know what I'm
criminal justice system.
saying?
And this
I wouldn't
Yeah.
trust it.
dignity to the criminal
I
justice
mean,
system. It adds
I don't see an
due
Adam's
process,
apple.
and it adds fairness. So I want
I don't
to
know. They get those fixed
again
these
thank
days, bro.
my partner in
Yeah, you
doing
can
this
shave them
and
and
ask that we
whatnot.
support the
Yes.
amendment and the underlying
You
legislation.
done failed your
That,
background check,
I yield
AA
back,
Ron.
and
I don't know if you
just
can.
so you know, I'm going
I
to
don't
say
know if you
that
can fix that like
30 of the
Michael
human trafficking
Obama.
bill has the
Well,
same
Michael and I.
content for us to work
Michael
together
and
as
I.
well. Thank you.
Gentlelady yields back. The question occurs on the amendment from gentleman from Kentucky. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chairs, the ayes have it. The
At
amendment is
11 o'clock,
adopted.
the South Carolina Senate should come in. So as soon as they start
Reporting
talking,
quorum
we'll
being present,
freaking
the
open him up.
question is on favorably reporting
Yeah,
the bill
that's gonna
as
be fun.
amended. All those in favor
Trust
say
me, I'm
aye.
already loading
Aye.
up on
Those
Motrin.
opposed, no.
Let me tell you, I'd rather be talking about
ayes.
Dark's deck than listening to them in South
Gentleman from
Carolina.
Florida asked for recording.
Why?
We do have a
Because I live
state-
there.
Mr.
Hey,
Jordan,
it's medium sized, but it's a
Mr. Jordan
gorgeous deck.
Smith, Mr. Isa,
Yes,
he
I've
does have
heard.
an awful
Mr.
Average.
situation with Dark's deck.
Mr. Gates,
No, it's
I hear
just
it's
a running
thick
joke.
deck,
If you guys don't believe me, I'll send you all a deck pic right now.
All right.
Oh Jesus!
Mr. Tiffany,
All right.
though. I don't want you to confuse those
Mr.
pictures,
Massey,
Dark.
Mr. Massey
Yeah,
votes aye.
right.
Mr. Roy, Mr.
I'll
Roy
save
votes
this
aye.
to
Mr.
my
Bishop,
deck pic
Mr. Bishop
folder.
votes aye.
Whoops.
Oh boy.
Mr. Fitzgerald, Mr. Fitzgerald votes aye.
This
Mr.
is all
Fields,
Rich's fault,
Mr.
by the
Fields
way.
votes yes. Mr.
Of
Klein,
course.
I blame a lot of shit on
Mr.
Rich.
Armstrong, Mr. Armstrong votes yes. Mr. Gooden votes yes. Mr. Van Drew votes yes. Mr. Nels, Mr. Moore votes yes. Mr. Kiley votes aye. Ms. Hageman, Mr. Moran,
Hageman's
Moran votes
another
aye.
monster in
Ms.
some of
Lee.
these hearings, man.
Ms.
She
Lee
gets
votes
down.
aye. Mr. Hunt, Mr. Fry, Mr. Nadler,
Aye.
Mr. Nadler votes aye. Ms. Lofgren, Ms. Jackson Lee, Ms. Jackson Lee votes aye. Mr. Cohen, Mr.
Cohen's
Johnson,
an absolute moron.
Mr. Schiff,
Same goes for
Mr.
Adam
Swalwell,
Schiff.
Schiff.
Shit's
a
a lying
Mr.
sack
Liu.
of shit.
Massive piece of
Ms.
shit.
Jayapal, Ms. Jayapal votes aye. Mr. Correa votes aye. Ms. Scanlon votes aye. Mr. Nagoose,
Fuck.
Ms. McBath, Ms. Dean, Ms. Escobar,
Freaking Lucy
Ms. Escobar
McBath. She
votes
looks
aye.
like a fucked
Ms.
up
Ross.
Jim Henson
Ms.
creation.
Ross votes aye. Ms. Bush, Mr. Ivy votes aye. Ms. Ballant votes aye.
Dude, Speaking of that, hold on.
The gentleman from California, Mr.
Do I
Isa.
still have it up in a tab?
Mr.
Yes.
Isa, you're not recorded.
I'm going to show you
Mr.
one of the
Isa votes yes.
sickest things I have seen
Any members who wish to vote
lately.
haven't been recorded.
Uh-oh. Am I gonna lose my coffee and my donut?
I feel like I'm going to lose the same thing.
You probably won't lose that, but hold on, because you're going to have to look at David Hogg.
Oh, God.
Christ. No.
Oh no.
David the Hog.
It's the anniversary of the Parkland shooting. This year, this day in
Forehead.
particular,
Look at his hairdo.
than previous one. It's because I started out the day with Manny Oliver, who lost his son Joaquin in the Parkland shooting. And we went out and I was helping him announce a new program called The Shot Line, which is a website that people can go to where Manny has recreated his son's voice to call members of Congress and demand action on gun violence.
All right, pause.
So done this with
we know
other
what
victims' families
That is just
and,
wrong.
and their
That's
victim
wrong
of
right
gun
there.
violence or their child.
That's about
who's
as
stolen
wrong
from them
as
by
the
gun
whole
violence, whether
Amazon
they're
thing,
from Uvalde
bring
or other
your
places around the
grandparent
country.
back from the dead.
And
Yep.
despite doing that and starting out this day on that note, we still see how little action has been taken by Congress, by the federal government on
Because
this.
it's not
And
constitutional.
if you want to help
How
us
many times
push
did I
to
tell
create
you?
some of that action to demand stronger gun laws, you just have to put in your zip code and your member of Congress will get a call from a victim of gun violence that is a recreation of their voice demanding stronger gun laws.
Oh, did you hear
We
that? A
have to make
recreation
this
of their voice.
disturbing. It should be disturbing that to the people that are getting these calls on
No,
the Hill,
what's disturbing
that
is
this
they're
is
wasting
what
their
it's come to,
time
but
on
we
this.
have to show them. So go to theshotline.org and call your representative using
The
one of these
shot line.
voices.
What type of twisted bullshit is this?
Dude, it's what you see Tony Simon down here, man. He calls it out. You know, it's a completely emotional.
Such bullshit.
It's these people, there is nothing they will not do, nothing they will not say to push their agenda.
For
Not
sure.
a single thing. Are we back in the right hearing here?
And they'll go to the lowest of the low to do it.
Specific detention mandates, and furthermore, that the secretary did that while underutilizing detention space and repeatedly asking Congress to provide less detention space resources. The Supreme Court didn't disagree with any of those
Dude,
findings
move your head. I can't read his name tag.
because the executive retains some prosecutorial discretion, even under Congress's statutory mandates. The court could not put itself in the position to referee whether in a particular case the executive was in fact exercising prosecutorial discretion or flouting acts of Congress in favor of a different regime of its own choosing. In other words, rule of law or rule of man. The court observed that such disputes generally must be left to resolution between the Congress and the executive. If Congress wants its laws to be followed, it must impeach or cut off funding or other drastic actions, almost all of which have undesirable collateral effects, which Justice Alito characterized as Congress going to war with the executive. We've done that just this week in the articles of impeachment against Alejandro Mayorkas, only the second cabinet officer ever to be impeached. Many members of the minority, in fact of the majority, commented that this is an unsatisfactory state of affairs. Everyone should agree with that, but it is not acceptable to allow the executive to ignore Congress's laws at will. Now, in United States versus Texas, the concurrence of Justice Kavanaugh pointed to a path that might avoid the constitutional conflict between the Congress and the executive. He said, in holding that Texas and Louisiana lack standing, we do not suggest that federal courts may never entertain cases involving the executive branch's alleged failure to make more arrests or bring more prosecutions. And then skipping, as the Solicitor General points out, that's the Biden administration Solicitor General. As the Solicitor General points out, the standing analysis might differ when Congress elevates de facto injuries to the status of legally cognizable injuries redressable by a federal court. For example, Congress might specifically authorize suits against the executive branch by a defined set of plaintiffs who have suffered concrete harms from executive under-enforcement, and specifically authorize the judiciary to enter appropriate orders requiring additional arrests or prosecutions by the executive branch. And then he went on to say that in these cases, the relevant statutes do not supply such specific authorization. This bill, now before the committee, does that in an appropriately balanced way. It specifically authorizes suits against the executive branch by a narrowly defined set of plaintiffs, state attorneys general, and authorizes the judiciary to enter appropriate orders. This language is added to detention, parole, and visa sanction provisions where Congress has commanded certain actions from the executive. Courts still have room in every case to examine whether particular executive branch decisions are bona fide exercise of discretion or attempts categorically to change the law in defiance of Congress. Finally, this is extremely timely. Just this week, the 11th Circuit sent back to district courts in Florida other immigration cases brought by state attorneys general to be reconsidered as to whether those courts had jurisdiction because of the standing issue. There, the issue was not the Department of Homeland Security's categorical refusal to take certain aliens.
Where's it at? All right, so the shot line that they were just talking about. Says there's been 25,707 of these AI calls submitted to representatives already.
Wow.
Look at this number of mass shootings in 2023. I think that number is a little inflated.
For sure.
Number of gun violence deaths in 2023, which we already know most of those are suicides. And they include justifiable homicides in that number.
Ooh.
Actual murders are somewhere along the lines, and they hold steady at about 7,000 a year in a country of 350 million people. Oh, you can even add your loved ones to the shot line.
Oh, jeez.
Stay connected for updates. We're going to get some updates.
Wait, you're going to put your email in this thing?
Yep.
All right.
How do you think I end up on calls with like Brady and them?
You get too
Yeah.
close to my friend.
Oh, bro, that's the funniest shit.
There's a saying, moth to the flame.
Hey, know your enemy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but at the same time, you're putting damage upon yourself just by being around them. I mean, hell,
Well, haven't you seen Coop? He's already a damaged individual, so what does it matter?
This is what I'm saying.
No, if you saw the Brady stream, you should have seen him sweating and getting fired up, man. I was like, holy shit, man.
Hold on, because it looks like
You obviously don't know Coop as well as you think you do.
I've seen him, dude. I've seen how he acts.
Hey, dude, I got kicked off of another one with it was Brady, the NAACP, and someone else. All I had to do was ask about Maj Touré, and when they saw that comment, they kicked me out of the stream within seconds.
Of course.
I was like, hey, have you heard of this guy, Maj Touré? I heard he's doing good work in the black community. Da-da-da-da. Poof, I was gone.
Dunzo.
Field goal punt.
And I've been telling Coop this. They're nothing but a cult.
Yeah.
They are an absolute cult. All right, South Carolina's coming in. Let me switch over to this.
Yay.
Because I am hoping they will jump right into the constitutional carry. So we'll see.
No, I don't think they will. I think they'll go through everything else
order.
first, like they normally do.
Members and
Yeah.
guests will remain standing while we're led in our devotion by our chaplain, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Chaplain.
Yeah, because they still do the
Remember
Pledge of
that God
Allegiance in South
himself called
Carolina.
upon Abraham, saying to him,
Yeah, they do in Alabama too.
Take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the region of Moriah and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains that I shall show you.
So much shit.
From Genesis
My bad.
chapter
I'm doing
22,
something real
verse
quick.
1, verse
I'll
2.
be.
No, you're good, brother.
Let us unite our hearts together in prayer.
Do that. But yeah, man, I get emails from Brady in every town. I've been on, I don't know how many damn.
I hope that's a spam email so they don't flood your actual email.
No, it's my actual CNT Designs email.
Oh shit.
Let's see. Let me pull Rumble Hodge Twins. What was the last one? Pretty sure it was like Brady Buzz or something.
Brady Bunch?
The Brady Bunch. No, this is the NAACP advocacy training recap. Oh, hold on. Did they give me the video of it? Because I screwed up and I didn't turn on my damn sound when I did the video. Of course, this is through the Team Enough chapter. This is from Bridget Toast. She, her, hers pronoun.
Yes, she did. I couldn't help myself.
Oh, come on. And that one night, they did not want to talk about, hey, parents can legally buy guns for their children. Now, they did ask me if I was willing to, or if I was interested in hosting my own Brady event in the future. That might be something later.
Coop's like, sure.
Oh, yeah, we can run that. I do not think you guys will invite me back to host again, though. And damned if it is, I won't even be a real douchebag about it. We're just going to talk about facts, and that'll be enough to sink it.
The problem is people don't like you telling out the facts.
Oh, no, facts is bad.
Facts are dangerous.
Let me post. I'm going to post a link in the chat to a guy. This guy's a history professor, and he gave his own kind of breakdown of the Hawaii decision. But what you have to understand is he came at it from a position of, yeah, it's good that the Hawaii Supreme Court was telling the federal Supreme Court to fuck off. And it is to a point. Because if more of these states would tell the federal government to fuck off,
which is exactly what we should be doing.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the federal constitution trumps your state constitution.
It does.
Facts.
Well, it has that effect through, what is it, the 10th and the 14th Amendments. But if your state constitution does not give your government the power to ban arms or regulate arms, then it should stop in state court if your state judges were worth a shit.
Well, if they're all Democrat instead of Republican or independent or libertarian, which if those even really do lean that way,
absent Mr. Martin.
No.
Martin is present. Mr. Massey. Absent Mrs. Matthews is
See,
present.
and I did a video. God, I have to go dig it up. It was early on my channel.
Mr. President.
Basically saying that all federal gun control is unconstitutional.
Mr. Rice is
and all the state gun control is unconstitutional. There's not a single state that in the Constitution gives the government the power to regulate arms that the citizens own.
Mr. Settler is present.
Oh,
Mrs. Shealy
the
is
thing
present.
about arms, how about them
Stevens
regulating
is present.
marriage? We
Mr.
allowed
Talley.
them miscegenation laws.
Absent Mr. Tedder.
Yeah,
is
there's been
present.
plenty of
Mr.
unconstitutional
Turner,
shit.
Present. Mr. Vernon
Again, then we get back to
is
these
present.
stupid ass judges.
Mr. Williams. Present. Mr. Young.
Hey, R, what's up, my brother? How you doing this morning?
Of all the senators, Senator Saab is present. Senator Hutto is present.
Bless you.
Senator Kevin
No,
Johnson
that's
is
a
present.
thing.
Further members wishing to
Coop, has there
record
been
your
an attorney
presence
that
as
actually became a
quorum of the
politician and
Senate,
became a legislator?
Senator Campson is present.
Yeah, man, they have that. That's
Senator
constant.
from Georgetown, Senator Goldfinch, what purpose do you
That's like a
ask?
lot of these guys in Congress
State
are
your
lawyers.
request.
Hell, Hank Johnson from Georgia is a fucking lawyer.
Until 11:30.
Without objection,
He's a joke.
Senator Clymer has leave
I
until
mean, how would you like to
11:30.
be in a criminal case and that dude walks in
Further
as your
members
lawyer?
of the Senate,
Guam is gonna capsize.
record your presence.
Man, it's
Senator
freaking.
from Aiken, Senator Young, what purpose do you
He
rise,
could
sir?
defend an
Unanimous
innocent
consent
man all the way to
State your
the death
request.
chamber.
Leave for the day for the senator from Spartanburg, Senator Talley,
Without objection, the senator from Spartanburg, Senator Talley.
and also the senator from Edgefield, Senator
Tallywhacker.
Massey.
Without objection,
Live to ride. What's up, brother?
Senator
How's things
Corbett
going with you?
is present.
I'm getting a new sack today.
Oh, what?
A new sack. You guys have all seen my sack, right?
Have
Your
all
bug out.
members
Yeah.
recorded your presence.
My sack that Jerry Mikulik signed.
Close.
Well,
You'll give
the
clerk
the
that,
signature is wearing off, so I had to get a new sack.
So the
Remember,
senators are there. They got a quorum.
handle your sack responsibly.
Members are present, a quorum
Of course, I actually
is present.
I let a lot of other people handle my sack too.
That might not be so good.
Well, you know, I make
Depending
sure
on who's
that-
Senator from Fairfield, what purpose do you
Yeah, it
rise,
depends
sir?
on who's handling it.
Of an introduction.
You are recognized for an
man,
introduction.
jam it.
All right, so they're going to go through all their introductions. I'll keep an eye on that, but let's see.
Senator from Fairfield.
Flip a coin. Are we going back to the virus hearing or are we going back to the markup?
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate. Thank you, Mr. President, for this time to recognize today.
Sure.
Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, we're going to talk about
surrounding the COVID-19 vaccine have highlighted areas where these systems may have fallen short, and we can start rebuilding trust for safe and effective vaccines in the future. After all, we know that vaccines really are
Oh, please, no vaccine talk.
times lifesavers. But
Oh,
I
you
do
didn't make a
want
decision soon
to
enough.
point specifically to the concerns about post-vaccination heart issues, particularly myocarditis in young people. In fact, myocarditis is one of the injuries that have been compensated for. And I'd like to know from both either Dr. Jernigan or Dr. Marks, what specific monitoring or I guess safety monitoring or research projects are currently underway by the CDC or the
I'll be
FDA
right back.
to delve deeper into this issue.
I'm happy to start. Thank you for that question. We have had multiple go-rounds in our adverse event reporting systems that use active surveillance. One of them is called the BEST system to look among large databases, claims databases, and electronic healthcare records to look at the incidence of myocarditis in vaccinated individuals versus non-vaccinated individuals. And some of that work has now been published. I think it leads us to understand that after the first COVID-19 vaccines, where the primary series given 2 doses 3 or 4 weeks apart, there was a risk in the younger age range of males that was about 1 in 10 to 1 in 20,000, 1 in 10,000 to 1 in 20,000 individuals got myocarditis. Now with the spacing out of the vaccines, that risk is almost undetectable. And there was a recent study published in the JAMA Pediatrics in 3 million plus individuals ages 5 to 17 years who had received 5.9 million vaccine doses, which really only, again, it confirmed what we had seen. There was a signal for myocarditis or pericarditis only after the primary vaccination series with the Pfizer mRNA vaccine in those 12 to 17 years of age, and that now that signal is not being seen more recently. So I think we've learned something about how to deploy the vaccines, and I think that's why CDC, I can turn over to Dr. Jernigan, has changed their recommendations for how they be used.
Yes, if you quickly add to that.
Just to say that we do have systems, the VAERS systems, the vaccine safety data link that is also monitoring other systems that are continuing to monitor for myocarditis.
Okay. As more time
Yeah, I
passes,
gotta
is
knock
the
some of this
FDA
stuff out,
actively
man. I gotta run, you
conducting,
guys. Sorry.
safety surveillance on those who receive
I'll see y'all later.
COVID-19
Coop said he was
vaccines? Are
going to
there
come on
specific
tonight,
health
so just
markers that you're studying
when he comes back,
that may
just
signal
remind
trends
him.
requiring further inquiry?
I'll send him a link tonight.
Thanks very much for that question. In fact,
See you
every
guys.
time we go through and do the safety surveillance, we start back, and it goes back to 2020. In some cases where we're looking for certain things, we might use a different window, but indeed, we have to look from the beginning of the period.
Yeah, I was listening. I
I can
heard it.
turn it over to Dr. Jernigan because he can speak for CDC in that regard.
Yeah, Dark says you said you were going to come on
Myocarditis,
tonight.
we're
He's going to send you a link.
monitoring The,
Yeah. I was, like I said, I had my
adverse event
headphones
data
on. I could
systems.
hear him. I was
think
just
the most
making it up a
recent
cup of
data really
coffee.
demonstrates that there's about 8 times less likely to get myocarditis if you're vaccinated compared to those that are unvaccinated.
Yeah, not just myocarditis, everything.
Repeat the question then.
As more time passes, is the FDA actively conducting extended safety surveillance on those who received the early COVID-19 vaccines?
Yeah, most of the reports that we
Coop, I
get
got
of
something I
adverse
gotta
events
show
are
you.
in the few weeks following the
What you got to work
vaccination.
on?
In terms of monitoring
Check your
these over
phone.
time, we do have vaccine effectiveness systems that are
I
in
can't
place
believe
at
this.
CDC.
Okay, we're running out of time, but thank you very much.
I now recognize Ms. Ross from North Carolina for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you so much to
Oh,
our
yeah.
witnesses
That's
for
the dude who
being here
shot up the
today.
damn police car.
I just want to correct the record on some misrepresentations that we've heard here, but we've also heard in the public regarding the COVID-19 vaccine and vaccine safety systems more broadly. In listening to today's hearing, one might be led to believe that reports submitted to the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System, or VAERS, are the most meaningful measure of adverse health events and should be the sole basis for evaluating whether the COVID-19 vaccines are safe. However, my understanding is that VAERS is just one surveillance program within a multi-layered vaccine safety system that CDC operates, and that submissions to VAERS, which are unverified, can be submitted by anyone, regardless of how likely a vaccine is to have created an adverse event, and can act as early warnings to prompt deeper investigations through these other surveillance programs. Is that correct, Dr. Jernigan?
Yes, so VAERS is a system for getting information in and quickly identifying trends, but it is not the data set that we use to determine causality or the impact of the vaccine.
And can you explain in more detail how VAERS prompts this deeper investigation through other safety surveillance programs at the CDC?
Yes, I think over the last several years, there have been over 676 million doses of vaccine that have been administered, and we've had a significantly, exceedingly rare number of adverse events reported. There's an even lower number of serious adverse events. Each of those serious adverse events does have a follow-up. They ask for medical records and for autopsy records. We utilize then different systems like our clinician immunization safety assessment program that can then evaluate some of the findings. We also have other data sets that can really tell us if there's an increased signal across the general population that we need to be worried about.
Thank you for that. And then for the reasons you just explained, it seems that the VAERS data on its own does not provide a strong basis for evaluating causality, and that doing so does require this multi-layered approach. Is that correct?
Correct.
And how far are you into that multi-layered approach for the COVID vaccines?
Well, in terms of using all those different systems they're an ongoing basis, and we've presented at each of the advisory committees on what we're finding in all of those systems regularly.
Okay. And so just to be abundantly clear, using the VAERS data exclusively to make claims about COVID vaccines causing adverse health effects would be flawed.
VAERS is not intended to determine if a vaccine is causing an adverse event.
Okay, thank you very, very much. Dr. Marks, my colleagues have attempted to distort an email that you sent in July 2021 regarding the authorization of the Pfizer booster. They've claimed that this is evidence of political interference that undermined patient safety in favor of expediting the timeline for this product. Dr. Marks, I'd like to give you an opportunity to correct the record on the misrepresentations of this email that have been made, and just give you, I have a minute and 15 seconds. It's all yours.
All right. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Congressman Ross. At the time that these boosters were authorized, just before, we had an increasing number of deaths starting to run into the 1,000 per day in the United States. And there was great urgency to think about what we could do to try to reduce that number of deaths. It had become clear that immunity was waning, and that potentially giving a booster could restore
Okay, I'm
immunity
back.
and decrease
Yeah,
the
I'm
number
still
of
listening to
deaths.
South Carolina
Um,
Senate. They're
and
still
so
doing
we
introductions
moved
and
with
stuff
all
like
due
that.
haste, not because of
TV.
any kind of external pressure, but because of internal pressure. We felt compelled to
We
try
know,
to save
Dee Dee. We
American
know.
lives because thousands of people were dying. And as somebody who was one of the architects of Operation Warp Speed, I had a pretty good idea about how to find efficiencies to move forward. It was critical
A
to
lot of
move
these
as
people
fast
should
as we
be in
could.
fucking
And
prison.
by the way, the data that has now been published showed that introduction of that first booster was probably responsible for saving hundreds of thousands of lives as we entered the Delta and Omicron waves. Thank you.
Thank you so much
Oh,
for
you
that
mean like
explanation. And
Cuomo
Mr.
putting
Chairman, I
a
yield back.
bunch of nurses
Now
and
recognize Ms. Lesko from
elderly in
Arizona
the
for 5
nursing
minutes.
homes?
Thank you,
and
Mr.
dying?
Chairman. Thank you all for being here. Dr.
My
Marks, we
God.
spoke over the phone back on August 10th of 2021, and I was asking about VAERS because I had lots of constituents reaching out to me saying there was tons of adverse effects, there was thousands of deaths, et cetera, and they were very concerned. And I asked how many were confirmed. And at that time, you said 4. There were 4 cases that you confirmed deaths of that were caused by the vaccine. And I suggested at the time that the CDC and FDA do a better job of telling the public not just how many cases were reported, but how many were actually confirmed. And just, if I heard you right, just recently you said, well, we don't want to give out too much information because of privacy rights. But certainly we could put out how many were confirmed deaths, couldn't we?
That VAERS data was
Congressman,
crazy.
thank you so much for that question. I fully agree with you that we probably have not done a good enough job of communicating at sometimes the actual numbers of deaths versus what's in VAERS. In fact, we just nearly fell prey to it here at this hearing. There are only handfuls, and I'll ask Dr. Jernigan to comment on this as well, handfuls that we can actually associate with the
Can I
actual
ask
vaccine.
why you haven't done it? I mean, this was August of 2021. It seems very logical to me that if you're saying people, the public shouldn't count on VAERS because anybody can report to that, which they can, why wouldn't you as
We're keeping an eye on
actively
South
report
Carolina,
to the
but
public?
I know
Well,
I've
we
got a fail here
confirmed
about
this really
11:45,
low
so we
number
got
of
too
cases
much
that
longer.
actually were caused by vaccines. I mean, it's been years now. Why haven't you done
Mike,
it?
are you going
We
to start up
did
the stream and
present
try to
that
keep an
in
eye on them?
various settings, including
No.
at, I believe, at the advisory
I've
committee
had
on
enough of
immunization
it.
practices. It was mentioned at our vaccine
All right. Well, since Night Strike's a
advisory
little girl,
committee. It perhaps did
I'll
not
keep an
go
eye
as
on it
well
at
as
work. If
Is
they
there an
started on
easy
constitutional
place for
carry
the
debate, I'll
public
just
to
start up
find
the
this? I
stream while I'm in
remember
the
you gave
background.
us some kind of link back in 2021, but it was
Yes,
really
I borrowed
difficult
one
to
of
get
Coop's
to, if I
dresses.
remember right. And so why
Hey,
not
look, it's
spend
a
the
pretty
time,
dress. Is that
like
the
make
floor pattern?
if the
A
goal
little tight
is
around the
to
edges.
give confidence to people in getting
Got to show the
vaccines,
curves off
why
now.
in the world would you just not say, okay, what we have done is we've investigated these deaths, we've done this, we've done that, and we've only found, you know, a handful. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me, but I want to continue. I'm sorry, I have only a short period of time. One of my former constituents, and I think I talked to you about this, Dr. Marks, from Surprise, Arizona, Steve Winger, worked for a company that forced him, mandated him to receive the COVID vaccine in May of 2021.
And looking at the gallery, I'm not seeing a
He
whole
got
lot
the
of red
J&J
shirts up there
vaccine.
right now.
Within a month of receiving the vaccine, he was in the hospital paralyzed from his neck down. He spent over 3 months in the hospital and was eventually diagnosed with Guillain-Barré syndrome. And actually, the doctor has said right on his medical stuff that it was most likely caused from the vaccine. Steve continues to struggle with his injuries today, all because he was forced to take an experimental vaccine at the urging of the health agencies. Mr. Wenger's injury was also reported to VAERS, and he filed a claim with CICP about 2 years ago, he said, and has not heard back at all. He said not even a form letter. So I want you to know that, Commander, so that maybe my office can give you his name so you can at least respond that you got the claim from 2 years ago. Also, there was a New York man who suffered from HLH after his COVID vaccine. His initial report was classified as life-threatening. His second report, filed after his death, was classified as hospitalized. The family called to request a correction to the second report to be a fatality and was instructed to file another report, and was then sent a form condolence letter from the CDC. And the fatality was in May of 2021. The form letter was received in December 2022. The family subsequently sent an automated message at the end of 2023 to update their VAERS report on his condition. He is dead, they said. The family has been very distressed by the lack of proper investigation done and classification that he's actually died. And so all I'm saying, I've run out of time, is that, as you have said, you've increased the number, Commander, from 4 personnel to, I think you said 35. Obviously, more work needs to be done if people haven't been, the person died and it still says they're hospitalized. I mean, this is a huge problem. And with that, I yield back.
I now recognize the ranking member of the full committee, Mr. Raskin from Maryland, for 5 minutes.
Oh, God, Jamie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman.
Dr. Marks, you said a moment ago that the vaccine booster alone saved hundreds of thousands of lives. How many lives have been saved by the COVID-19 vaccine generally?
It's estimated in the United States, about 3.2 million lives, and it's estimated that globally, COVID-19 vaccines have saved over 14 million lives, conservatively.
And we lost more than 1 million people to COVID-19.
That's correct, about 1.1 million. I kept the daily record of the number of people dying. It got up to about 3,300, about a World Trade Center disaster a day.
Deborah Birx, who was former President Trump's White House coronavirus response coordinator, stated that a sequence
They're still
of
doing introductions in South
missteps
Carolina
and mistakes made by the prior administration's pandemic response cost hundreds of thousands of American lives. So I take it one of the points you have to make is that the public health response of the federal government
No,
makes
you're
a
good,
huge
Dark. I
difference
understand,
in
bro.
terms of
We'll talk
health
to you tonight,
outcomes
man.
for the American people.
I would agree with that.
Whether it's measles or tuberculosis or COVID-19, would you agree that vaccines save lives in the aggregate?
I think that by definition, for us to approve or authorize a vaccine, there has to be overwhelming evidence that many more lives are saved than might be taken by a vaccine. In other words, the safety has to be profiled by definition.
Yeah, all
has
good,
to
brother.
be excellent.
Gotcha. So, Dr. Jernigan, it seems as if one of the things that's created political or social conflict around this is the inevitable fact that even when vaccines save a huge number of lives, millions of lives, as Dr. Marks just testified, if in a small number of cases there are adverse results, the people who suffer them and their families are understandably very upset about that. Would you agree that that's a general conflict or dynamic that exists with all vaccines?
Correct. I think, we recognize that no medical intervention is
Let's
free.
look at something.
That goes with.
Let me pause them real quick. This was out of Australia with their vaccine. When they rolled their vaccine out at first in Australia, people started popping positive for HIV. Then they had to shut that down and reformulate their vaccine. Let's see. What is there? So that was December 2020. And there were some more reports around it. This is just the first thing that popped up. but it went to show more proof that the virus itself wasn't something that just popped out of nature on its own.
Popped out of nature. I think this was made in a lab in China and was used against the populace.
It was
in
grown
Hong
on the
Kong.
lab.
And also used against the riots and protests in Hong Kong, mind you.
Let's see.
So, yeah.
We'll get back to listen to this for a sec.
Conflict or dynamic.
So,
I can listen to this for a sec.
Conflict or dynamic.
So,
I can listen to this for a sec. Remember,
conflict or dynamic.
So, I can listen to this for a sec. Remember,
conflict or dynamic.
Are you gonna end this?
Listen to this for a sec. Remember,
conflict or
Oh
dynamic.
God.
Hold on, what did I do? Something went up. I know what I did. Wrong one.
Multi-share, or what'd you hit?
Remarkable.
I hit the wrong damn screen.
There's a paper that someone sent to me called Excess Death Rates for Republicans and Democrats During the COVID-19 Pandemic from the National Bureau of Economic Research, which makes the point that
guy's scum.
there have been substantially higher excess death rates for registered Republicans when compared to registered Democrats. And this has been connected to vaccine hesitancy or fears. And I'd like to submit this for the record, but I just wonder if you would opine on this for a second. Have we ever seen a case like this in the past where there's actually partisan differences in people's willingness to get a vaccine, their skepticism and death rates arising
we're still
from
up
such
and
differences?
I just hit the wrong tab.
Point out the importance of us getting to
SARS? I don't think we had the vaccine for SARS, did we?
Thank you very much, and I'll submit this for the record, Mr. Chairman. If I could.
I now recognize Ms. Green from Georgia for 5 minutes of questions, and without objection, submit it to the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not a doctor, but I have a PhD in recognizing bullshit when I hear it. I'd like to point out to everyone that we knew early on, as a matter of fact, everyone knew early on.
That was worth the price of
the people
admission
that were
right
at risk
there.
of hospitalization and dying of COVID were those that were obese, had diabetes, were over the age of 65. We also knew that children were at no risk, practically zero risk of being hospitalized or deaths from COVID-19. We knew that young people, healthy young people, were not at risk. However, Dr. Marks, you rushed through this process of authorizing these vaccines, even though you knew the side effects, you knew about myocarditis, and you knew about the studies. So let's be very real about the situation that we have. Here we have, let's talk about the reports on VAERS. Some people in here are trying to belittle these reports, but these reports come from people that died, people that got injured. And in December, in the middle of December, I think it was the 10th or the 11th, the first vaccine was authorized under emergency use. Boom, 10,596
That definitely, I need to
reports
clip that shit out.
in less than a month. 2021, 706,767
I'm not a doctor, but I got a
reports on
PhD in
VAERS
recognizing
for
bullshit.
vaccine injuries
Yep.
and deaths. 2022, it was
That was perfect.
206,676. 2023, and it went going down because the mandates stopped. Now, let's talk a little bit more about the vaccines. Here we have reports. Deaths, 18,372. Permanent disability, 17,842. Hospitalizations, 86,452. Emergency room or office visits, 315,048. Serious adverse events, 113,449. This is from the Congressional Research Service about VAERS. All kinds of injuries, miscarriages, heart attacks, myocarditis, permanent disability, neurological problems, and it goes on and on and on. These are the reports from people being forced to take vaccines. Shouldn't have happened. Mr. Grimes, I've just told you the numbers of reports. However, under CICP, there are only 10,640 of these COVID-19 claims are currently pending or are in review.
Oh yeah, Damon.
And as
She's
of
ripping
January
new one
1st,
any chance she
2024,
gets.
CICP only compensated 11 of the 40. Oh, wait. Let's make that number clear to everyone. Only 11 people have been compensated. Only 11 people have been compensated. Out of the 40 COVID-19 claims it determined were eligible, only 40 were determined eligible. That is amazing. And the average award was only about $3,700. On the other hand, the average VICP payout over the last 35 years is approximately $490,000. If you die or get injured from a COVID-19 vaccine, your average payout's $3,700. I'd like to recognize someone in the room today is here, Brianne Dressen. She's met with you, Dr. Marks. She's met privately with you about her vaccine injuries. She participated in a clinical trial. She was injured, and then she was dropped from the trial for the COVID-19 vaccines. Her medical expenses are $433,000 a year. She filed with CICP. Mr. Grimes, she's gotten no response. She's right here. Could you raise your hand, Ms. Dressen, please? Thank you. Perhaps you could meet with her after this meeting. Dr. Marks, you admitted to her that vaccine injuries are real, that they're real. Although you rushed through the authorization, and now you've authorized that children should receive these vaccines, and even babies as young as 6 months old. That is shameful. That's shameful. I'm not asking you a question. I'm going to continue speaking. Thank you. This is my time. The National Institute of Health also saw Ms. Dressen for her neurological complications that have been quite severe. They studied her, and then they dropped the study and asked her to be quiet about it. These are the real stories of the vaccine injured. They were totally, completely wiped off of social media. There's been thousands of peer-reviewed medical studies, thousands of them studying vaccine injuries. They are real. People are dying. People are having heart attacks, strokes, blood clots, and many other countries are dropping the COVID-19 vaccine and saying we shouldn't give them to children. It's time to be honest about the vaccine injured, and we need to stop allowing these COVID-19 vaccines to be given out to children.
Gentlelady's time has expired. I now recognize Mr. Garcia from California for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr.
See,
Chairman.
Mr. Garcia.
I'm sorry you all had to go through that. That was a lot of conspiracy theories and wild accusations,
Sure.
which we know have been debunked by medical science. And we should
No,
be
it
clear that
hasn't.
vaccines
No,
work
they haven't.
and save
They
lives,
just-
and they have millions of
It's
lives.
all
in this
been
country.
debunked.
Now, it's
like the
really
Prince of
unfortunate that
Gun
we're
use.
actually here
This has all
having
been
this
debunked.
hearing trying to poke holes and cause more vaccine hesitancy amongst the public. But we know that we're here because committee members on this committee have demanded that we have this hearing, and we continue to cave and give those members everything that they want. Now, we also know that we have a member of this committee that just actually made some comments, who's been on social media demanding that we hold this exact same hearing. This is the same person that we know that has, on countless posts, has spread misinformation, encouraged parents to refuse routine vaccinations for their children, which you just heard, by the way, and even compared
Said
our
refuse
pandemic
the
efforts
COVID
responses
vaccine.
to the Holocaust. I want to just actually read
Which I
something
have
which is in the
done.
public record. I'm not
I talked about
saying anything
vaccinating
that's
my
not in the
kids. I
public
told
record.
them, no, you're not doing it. Not for COVID-19.
That a member of this committee actually said, the same person that is actually attacking vaccines, said that vaccinated employees get a vaccination logo, just like the Nazis forced Jewish people to wear a gold star. I want to read that again. Vaccinated employees get a vaccination logo, just like the Nazis forced Jewish people to wear a gold star.
Yes.
Yes.
That is the level of insanity and attacks that we're having here as we actually debate the lives saved around vaccinations. Now, this same member has also held shadow public hearings promoting ideas that COVID is a bioweapon to target people of specific races and that vaccines, and I quote, cause turbo cancers. I want to read you this quote, and it's again in the public record at a hearing.
Yes.
Have the COVID vaccines resulted in an increase in cancers, and are turbo cancers real? Now, Mr. Chairman, this is, in my opinion, just insanity. We know that's not the case. Dr. Marks, can you clarify once again for the American people, do the COVID vaccines cause turbo cancers?
Why
There's
did
already
they bring all
oncologist
these doctors that lost their careers
that's board
talking about
certified.
this,
I don't know what a
trying to get
turbo
information?
cancer is. It was a term that was used first in a paper
Oh,
in
let
mouse
me see. They don't
experiments
want the
describing
truth.
an inflammatory response. We have not detected any increase in cancers with
bullshit.
the
They're already
COVID-19
questioning it. That's why
vaccines.
the,
Thank you, and I thank you for correcting the record.
May I just add something here? I do need to apologize to the 1,000 or so parents of children who are under 4 years of age who have died of COVID-19 who were unvaccinated, because there were deaths and are continuing to be deaths in
Dude, oh man, these people lie so well right to your fucking face. It's baffling to me that people believe these. Oh man, I can't even go there right now.
Well, that's okay. I've got a PhD in recognizing bullshit.
Man, I think I'm working on that master's degree, PhD level.
Yourself.
Yeah, I used to carry a card in my wallet that on it said, "Excuse me, sir, I'm a pretty good bullshitter myself, but occasionally I like to watch a professional." I need to get a stack of those again.
Right?
Oh man. This is a PhD level schooling and propaganda from our government.
And you're surprised?
No, it doesn't surprise me. It amazes me we got all these little NPCs out here, these little non-playable characters who get their updates and then spread this fucking shit around. So, now, South Carolina is actually talking about some legislation now.
I'm surprised you know what the NPC term means. I'm impressed.
Yeah, I've known what NPCs are forever. I've dealt with them. That's one of my favorite terms to use on X these days because they get their little programming updates from the government or the government's media, and then they just go puke that shit up on everybody else.
Well, I'm just happy that it used to be a video game term that's become a de facto term for Democrats.
It really has. It really has.
children, and that is the reason why they need to get vaccinated. Thank you.
And I agree with you 100%. And the
Doctors
fact that
told
we
me-
are
tried
now
to tell me
having
I was gonna get my kids vaccinated
parents
with
that are
COVID
choosing to
vaccine. I told
vaccinate
them,
their
"Ain't no way in
kids
hell."
less than before because of all of the attacks on vaccinations is shameful, and it's shameful that members of Congress continue to put down vaccinations as an opportunity to get our communities healthier. And Dr. Marks, I want to thank you for the work that you did. My mom passed away to COVID-19. My stepfather passed away due to COVID-19. Both would have
What
taken
were
that
their
vaccination
pre-existing health
in an
conditions,
instant
jackass? We
if it was
wanna talk
available
about
to
that?
them. And so anytime that folks, especially folks on this, subcommittee on the pandemic,
They had
attack
issues with
vaccines,
COVID. If they were
it's
sick with
personally
COVID, it was
insulting
affecting their
to all the
respiratory
families that have
capacity.
actually lost
Why
loved ones.
not
We've
treat
saved
the
millions
lungs
of
instead of putting
lives
them on ventilators?
because of the
My
vaccine.
grandmother was in her 90s
It's
and got over
unfortunate we
COVID.
keep
Don't tell me
causing,
that your
this
your
harm.
family died
I
of
just want
COVID.
to say, lastly, that Dr. Marks, do you agree that additional lives would have been saved? The lives that the folks that were not vaccinated that we lost, over a million, obviously, in this country. Wouldn't a vast majority of those lives been saved had we had the vaccine and they'd been vaccinated?
Multiple
No,
studies
you
showed
wanna
that
know what
80
would
to
have saved those
85%
people?
of the deaths
Don't
that
put
occurred
people with
were in
COVID into
unvaccinated
things like
individuals. So
nursing
if we would have
homes.
been able to reach a higher vaccination rate, it's likely that we would have had fewer deaths. And countries where they reached higher vaccination rates had fewer deaths per capita.
Thank you. And I encourage this committee and all members of Congress to
do any
encourage
lower
vaccinations
death
across this country to save more American lives. With that, I yield back.
countries with healthier
Now recognize
populations
Mr. Mfume
had
from
way
Maryland
lower
for
death
5
rates.
minutes of question.
Thank you, Chair Winstrup and Ranking Member Ruiz. I'm going to join in with the previous comments of members of the committee and welcome all of you
Sounds like
again for
South
being here
Carolina
with
went
us
through the
today.
first reading or the introduction on some bills. Now they're
Mr.
introducing.
Chair, I would also,
today,
on a point of personal privilege, remind
Oh, no.
members of
Point
this
of
committee,
personal
even though
privilege.
I'm not the chair, that there should be some
I
sense
got to
of
shut this down. I got to
decorum.
get on the road.
And vulgarity
All right.
should
We'll
be
see you later.
discouraged.
Before I head to work.
So if I ever say
But
that
I'll
I'm a
monitor this, and
PhD
if
in
South
PS,
Carolina pops up, and
it means
starts talking
Bulgarian
about constitutional
sunshine. You will
carry,
not
I'll
hear
start
me
something
talk
just so
about
everybody can
explicitly
get in the chat
the
and shoot the shit.
thing that I
All
want
right.
to mention
While we
here
listen
today.
to
There are
her.
people watching across this nation
So,
who want,
as
and
always,
quite
guys,
frankly,
you've heard
really
people,
expect that the Congress, if no other
hang on
place,
you
will
all.
conduct itself in a
All
way
right.
that
They want you
does not
dead and
insult
walking
any of them personally because of vulgarities, and in a way
I'm
that
out.
we should, in fact,
Later, guys. Have a good
conduct
afternoon.
business.
Well, good rest of your morning.
Mr.
Good
Chair, the
afternoon.
American ethic
Talk something up later.
has always
Later, guys.
been one of independence and self-sufficiency. As a society, we see our health decisions as deeply personal